Hey folks, welcome to the Power of Zero show. I'm your host, David McKnight, best-selling author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You Lerp, The Volatility Shield, and Tax-Free Income for Life. Today we're going to be talking about some of the financial planning changes you can expect to see in 2021. We're going to start off with some basic updates and thresholds and tax brackets that I think you really need to be concerned about if you are interested in the Power of Zero paradigm. First of all, you need to be aware that the standard deduction went from $24,800 to $25,100. This doesn't seem like a big deal, but what that means is that you can have larger amounts of money in your IRA by the time you reach 72, because those RMDs coming out of your IRA need to be offset by your standard deduction. If your standard deduction is a tiny bit bigger, that means you can have a little bit more money in your IRA. Another real big thing to be mindful of is that the Roth IRA has stayed exactly where it is. The contribution limit is $6,000. If you're younger than age 50, it's still $7,000. If you're older than age 50, I haven't found anyone that's given me a good explanation for why some of these other thresholds are increasing, but the Roth IRA seems to just stay put year over year over year. Case in point, the 401k went from 19,000 under age 50 contribution limit in 2020 to and 6,000 for a catch up if you're older than age 50. It increased by $500 on each count, so you can now contribute $19,500 plus a catch up of $6,500 if you're over age 50 for a total of $26,000. So note that the 401k went up, but the Roth did not. Now, when I say 401k, that includes Roth 401k as well. So you can put up to $26,000 into your Roth 401k, and that is something that you should take advantage of if you're able to. All right, let's talk about some of the changes in the tax brackets. We didn't see any dramatic increases, just the typical adjust to keep up with inflation, but these are numbers that you should really have on the tip of your tongue. For example, married filing jointly, the 22% tax bracket starts at $81,051, okay, and it ends at $172,750. Whereas the 24% tax bracket starts at $172,751 and it ends at $329,850. Now, why is this important? This is important because, and I've talked about this in the updated and revised version of the Power of Zero. I talk about it on my podcast. That 24% tax bracket is the sweet spot in this new tax code. Now, Biden is probably going to, we'll talk about here in a bit what Biden is going to do with this existing tax code, but $329,850 is the top of the 24% tax bracket. That means that you can really convert up to the top of that before you see this huge jump all the way up to the 32% tax bracket. Remember, the reason why 24% is so great is it's only 2% more than the 22% tax bracket, yet it allows you to convert, you know, an extra $150,000 or so of IRA to Roth IRA. Okay, it only costs you 2% more. I think in the big scheme of things, when we're trying to protect ourselves from the impact of tax rate risk, this is an important thing to be mindful of. So the 22 goes from 81,051 to 172,750, and the 24% goes from 172,751 to 329,850. What else do you need to know? Well, the Roth income limit phase out range has gone up ever so slightly. For a single person, it's 125 up to 140. For a married couple, 198 to 208. What does that mean? That means that as you sort of go through that 198 to 208 range, your ability to contribute to a Roth IRA reduces commensurately. So for example, let's say you're at $203,000 of modified adjusted gross income as a married couple filing jointly. That means that for under age 50, you would only be able to contribute $3,000 per person to your Roth IRA as opposed to the full $6,000. So if you're 50% of your way through that range, you can contribute 50% of the allotted amount to the Roth IRA. What happens if you exceed these ranges? Well, you can try a backdoor Roth, which is you you take after-tax dollars that you've contributed to an IRA, and then you immediately convert it to a Roth IRA. There are some strings attached that I address in my book, The Power of Zero. So if you're contemplating doing that, definitely check out The Power of Zero for some of the caveats there. And the other thing is you can do an LIRP. You can, you can put in as little, by as little death benefit as the IRS requires of you, put in as much money as the IRS allows in an attempt to mimic all of the tax-free benefits of the Roth IRAs, but without any of the limitations of the Roth IRAs. You don't have the income limits, you don't have the contribution limits, and it becomes this sort of unlimited bucket of tax-free dollars that you can accumulate for retirement. All right, what else do you need to be aware of for under the Biden administration? We've talked about some of these things, but I think that as we're going into 2021, it serves us all well to just have a quick reminder. You are likely to see some changes in the deductibility of your 401k. Joe Biden doesn't like that someone who's in the 37% tax bracket can put $10,000 into a 401k and get a $3,700 tax deduction, whereas someone who's in the 10% tax bracket can put $10,000 into his 401k and only get $1,000 worth of tax savings. So he's going to try to levelize that probably around 26%. That means that if you are in a tax bracket higher than, say, 24, you probably don't want to be putting money into a traditional 401k. You probably want to opt into a Roth 401k because it will pay. It won't pay to do the traditional Roth. You'll actually have to pay money to be able to put money into that traditional 401k. So if it's not going to mathematically work out in your favor, then it makes sense to simply forego that tax deduction and put money into your Roth 401k. You are likely to see a change in the marginal tax rate for people making more than $400,000. Now, I've got something interesting to relay on this regard. In an article by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the president of which is Maya McGinnis, who appeared in our movie, they did some studies and they said there is a rate beyond which, if you tax people, this is not the Laffer curve, by the way, a rate beyond which, if you tax people, it will negatively impact the economy, meaning it will depress economic growth. And they've calculated that number to be, and this is, remember, on the margin for the, for the people making the highest income in our country, that's about 73%. Well, I sort of wonder if the Biden administration had taken a cue from this study, because if, for example, you live in California, you add up all the taxes that you would pay under Biden's new tax proposal. That's 39% for federal tax. You've already got 13% for state tax. Throw in another 3.8% for Obamacare surcharge. And then Joe Biden is proposing an additional, hold on to your seats here, 14% for any dollar you make above and beyond $400,000 in perpetuity to help shore up the holes in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's actually not enough to completely shore those programs up, but that's what he is proposing. And when you add all those up, it takes you to about 71, 72%. So it seems like Biden is trying to push up to the very point of taxation where he cannot impact the economic growth of the country in a severely negative way. What else are you likely to see? You're likely to see a forgiveness of loan, federal school loan debt up to $10,000. There's other people like Chuck Schumer or Elizabeth Warren who are lobbying for $50,000 of student loan forgiveness. Keep in mind that on day one of his administration, Joe Biden put a pause on monthly payments for all federal student loan borrowers through September. So what I would tell you is that if you have $10,000 of student loan, federal student loans or less, I would not try to get ahead of the game. I would not try to make any payments on those loans until you figure out what Biden has up his sleeve as far as these student loans go. So those are some tidbits. Those are some nuggets, some thresholds. sweet spots in the tax bracket that you need to be aware of. And I think that as you move into 2021, you'll be able to identify opportunities within the Power of Zero paradigm to improve your situation and to better prepare yourself for the impact of higher taxes. If you are looking for someone to help you navigate all of this, and you'd like to talk to someone who is a member of our elite POZ advisor group, been trained, vetted, qualified personally by me, you can certainly go over to davidmcknight.com. Be happy to make an introduction. If you are an advisor who wants to transition your practice to a Power of Zero style practice, you can head over to powerofzero.com. We'd be happy to chat with you. And if you want to buy my books in bulk, you can mix and match and still achieve bulk discounts among all of my 4 books that are available. Head over to davidmcknightbooks.com. That's davidmcknightbooks.com. Of course, I always would appreciate a follow on Twitter. It's at McKnight & Co, at McKnight & Co, and a subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being with us. We'll look forward to chatting with you same time next week.